Where's the major threat to us as a country right now? Where does it come from?
The major threat is still Islamicism.
The broken windows, a stark reminder to the faithful at Friday prayers that their mosque is a target of hate. First thought to be vandals who also smashed the windows of 2 cars, it took on a more sinister dimension after the outside of the mosque was spray painted with swear words and derogatory references to Arabs and Allah.
Police had investigated what happened here as acts of vandalism. Not anymore. It is now considered a much more serious crime.
It is classed as a hate crime, but the investigation is going to, at the end, clarify the situation.
Vandalism is one thing, but stuff like this with the what was put on this building is a little more than vandalism.
In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Today I, as a Muslim, I want to offer my opinion and make a statement that news media, they are making an environment of hate for the Muslims. We are the target, no doubt. It is unambiguous. This is something that is, I'm not making a clandestine point of view. It's not surreptitious. This is a fact that is taking place. But we keep on putting the dust underneath the rug, and we can't do it any longer because this hate is continuous, it's incessant. So we need to make a change in that. And there's no doubt in my mind, with all the plethora of evidence that is out there, that we are the target, no doubt. Just like the Jews were in the pre-Nazi era, that how they were looked on contemptuously, how they were shown in news media as people who are vicious and sly and taking over economy and they're no good and all of these things, while at the same time Hitler also had his propaganda showing a Jewish family enjoying lunch and dinner and say, oh look, we're not doing anything. Although the opposite was taking place. When they went to Germany for the Olympics, they took off the signs where Jews weren't allowed to sit. They took off the no Jew sitting signs off benches and stuff like this. As soon as the athletes went back, they were allowed again to put those signs up. So this is exactly what is taking place with the Muslims. I mean, we're not saying we have reached the stage of that proportion or that magnitude, but fascism, how many thousand steps? So we're at least some steps into this fascist ideology of scapegoating Muslims for everything bad that is taking place.
Don't tell me I need re-education. They need deportation. About Islam. I don't want to hear one more word about Islam. Take your religion and shove it up your behind.
American politicians state that the vast majority of Muslims living in the United States are just ordinary people who love America and are loyal to America. Is that true? Is that really true?
I can't begin to tell you how important it is that we understand the true nature of Islam, that we see it for what it really is.
Police say the 17-year-olds broke several windows with an iron rod and slashed tires on a van. According to the report, Gonzalez Baca told police that, quote, all Muslims were terrorists.
What also happened to the Japanese right here in Canada, where they said a vote for the NDP would be a vote for the Jap, and that's a negative terminology used for the Japanese. The Koreans, the North American Indians, where John Wayne is going and he's always winning, and Tonto says a few words, Kimosabi, it's not even a word. The African Americans, over 400 years of slavery and persecution. We have so many examples. That's why Abraham Lincoln, he said, he who molds public sentiments goes deeper than he who enacts statutes and pronounces decisions. So public sentiment right here is the media. In America, and I would like to say the reason I'm choosing America as an example for media is that because it's a dominant culture. That's a fact. I could say Canada, I could say Australia, I could say Pakistan, but I'm using America because it's the dominant culture. It's being exported all over the world. And people, for example, if a rapper goes, yo, my man, somebody in Jeddah will go, yo, my man. So I'm going to use America as an example for what it has in terms of media, because that's what they're exporting. 1,400 daily newspapers. 1,400. That's not a joke. 1,400 daily newspapers. 1,700 television stations. 1,700 television stations. 12,000 radio stations. 17,000 magazines. What else do you need? Seriously. I mean, this is the media that's saturated. But guess what? It's owned by a few. And the few that are out there doing good works like Democracy Now, fair.com.org, democracynow.org. If you go www.democracynow.org, that is the news in 15 minutes, the first part. You can watch 50 hours of Fox News or CNN and won't get as credible news as you would with Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman and Juan Gonzalez. Wonderful people. Even from their faces you can see these are people who are not controlled by corporate dollars, big pharma. And they say it themselves. They take donations from regular people to put the truth out there. So therefore the media colors our perception. It controls our thoughts. This is what happens, and they know that they have this big industry cornered for money.
Well, there's a connection between our location and where they can blow us up. You don't see them blowing us up here since 9/11 because they would love to come over here, but we have to be vigilant. So they blow us up in Lebanon because it's easier than trying to come over here. That's why we have to be vigilant and stay on top of them. They're not going to like us no matter what we do.
Who's they?
The terrorists. The Islamic fascists that President Bush is talking about, and I'm glad he's finally saying that, because he's tried to say that Islam is a religion of peace, which is not true.
Okay, religion. Okay, good. We got a lot on the record there. Let's go back to Amy Goodman. You want to respond to that?
To smear a whole religion is racist, and it's disgusting. And I think Muslims around this country are very insulted, and not only Muslims, but people who care about equality. There are a lot of Muslims who are standing up right now and saying that they don't believe in violence, as many other people are. We have to stop terrorism, whether it's in Britain to bring down planes that are coming here, or whether it's, unfortunately, the U.S. military in Iraq that has been involved in what the military is admitting are some terrible crimes, from Haditha to Mahmudiyah. Killing civilians is absolutely unacceptable. And to smear an entire religion, I just would like to know if Heidi smeared Christians when Timothy McVeigh blew up the Oklahoma City building. Of course not. That would be ridiculous to pick up every white man in America because he's a white man or he's Christian.
You really think that's what she's saying, Amy? Are you really saying that she's saying that?
Well, I'm absolutely saying that when she says that Islam is not a religion of peace, it's ignorant and it's unacceptable.
The 2005 survey for Pew Research Center said 19% of Americans believed primary concern of news media was to keep them informed. Only 19% believed that. And 75% believed in this Pew research that media was more concerned by attracting bigger audiences than they were concerned about any other thing, meaning like being informed or telling the truth or giving them information that was food for thought or would change the world somehow. No, they said they were more concerned about attracting bigger and bigger audiences. So despite all of this, the brainwashing still continues. Now, there was a research done by Annie Das, D-A-S, and her colleagues. And the research was how terrorism news reports increase prejudice against outgroups, meaning groups that are not like with, like, for example, the white race would think that the black race is the out group, and the black race would think that the white race is the out group, meaning to say groups that are outside of this ethnocentric vision. So they did a terror management account in the Journal of Experimental Psychology, Social Psychology. And their findings were, number one, that news media associated terrorism with Muslims in general rather than with extremists. So if you read Robert Pape's book, Dying to Win, he emphatically, because he did 315 studies to show that all of this terrorism and acts of terrorism has nothing to do with religiosity, has nothing to do with becoming a fundamentalist. It all has to do with geopolitical aims, where armies are invading, where they're being, where their rights are being usurped, where they're being jailed without trial. All of those things increased terrorist act against by doing random acts of terrorism. So he actually wrote a whole book, and he's a scholar in there. How many times have you seen him on CNN or on Fox News? But you see these talking heads, these pundits all the time, and they're not doing any service to mankind.
How is it religious tolerance to build a 15-story triumphal mosque looking down on the burial ground, the sacred ground of 9/11, when it was Islamic texts?
Because Islam does not promote people to fly planes into buildings, many would argue.
The last chapter, which supersedes all chapter, is a very violent chapter to kill non-Muslims and to conquer.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Say, I seek refuge in the Lord of mankind, the King of mankind, the God of mankind, from the evil of the sneaking whisperer, who whispereth in the hearts of mankind, of the jinn and of mankind.
And yes, they were all screaming Allahu Akbar.
So then, Pamela, is this about a mosque, or is this about Muslims and Islam?
So the first finding that these people found, Mrs. Das, I don't know if she's Mrs., I should call her Annie Das, that news media associated terrorism with Muslims in general. And that's a fact. And this is a journal of experimental social psychology, meaning this journal is reputable. It's not Fox or CNN or somebody trying to make money. Secondly, news coverage about terrorism increased death-related thoughts, and also increased agreement with a news article that suggested problems with integrating Muslims into society. It suggested all of a sudden that Muslims cannot integrate, Muslims cannot become part of society, Muslims cannot do anything of a good nature, they're not benefactors, they're actually a menace, they're pestilence, things like that. So they found that out. Thirdly, they said prejudice against Arabs went up after exposure to terrorism news. And so it's continuous, terrorism, continuously putting Muslim and Islam, terrorism synonymous. So you ask anyone about terrorism, all of a sudden, a beard like mine, a topi, a turban, a long dress, something like that will pop open. And that's exactly what my point is, that they're creating an environment of hate.
بس كيف رح ياخذ الشهاده اذا كمشوني؟ هذا هدفنا. بعد تقتل الكفار كلهم سلم نفسك. ساعتها بنعوز الله. القوانين تبعهم، المحاميين تبعهم، الاخبار، التلفزيون، كله نوصل رسالتنا للعالم كله. ساعتها هذا طريقنا الوحيد للسمع.
My name is Dan Finelli. Send me to Washington, and I'll send our enemies where they belong. And
that's not to a courtroom. Does this look like a terrorist or this? It's time to stop this political correctness and the invasion of our privacy. Let's face it, if a good-looking, ripped guy without much hair was flying airplanes into the Twin Towers, I'd have no problem being pulled out of line at the airport. This is an airplane, and this is a terrorist. Send me to Washington and get rid of that bum Alan Grayson, and I'll make sure guys like this get nowhere near things like this. I'm Dan Finelli, and I approve this message.
So when they say Arabs, although I'm not an Arab, how does some Joe Hick somewhere in a small town who has never met a Muslim know that differentiate between an Arab or not? They killed, 2 or 3 Sikh elders because they were wearing a turban. They couldn't differentiate even if they were Muslims or not. So when they say Arabs, Muslims are affected. Karen Dillon, her marvelous work of how fantasy becomes reality. How fantasy becomes reality. That's the title of the book. Karen Dill, D-I-L-L. It's a must-read, everyone. It's a PhD thesis, really. Fantastic work she has done. She is commenting on this report. She says that reporters should should make clear the distinction between Muslims in general and extremists. Another important factor is that audience, if they're only processing peripherally, meaning on the side, they're not concentrating or not making critical distinction between themselves, making a distinction, within them, that will alter their perception. So if I continuously keep seeing a bearded man and keep hearing the talking heads continuously, 24 hours, continuously, anytime you open it, they're repeating the same program over and over and over and over again in 24 hours. If I'm not processing, if I'm not critically thinking and how life is going now with Blackberries and iPhones and you name it, it's continuously on our backs, who is going to have time to critically think? So in an international society for research in aggression, this was in Budapest, Hungary, 2008, Michigan's aggression research group, they studied the effects of exposure of American youth to images of Middle Eastern violence in media.
Well, police, get down on the ground!
Hey, terrorist! Terrorize this.
Middle Eastern violence. Now people, if you tell them where is Australia, they can't figure out. You read The Dumbest Generation, there's a book called The Dumbest Generation, they can't figure out anything. And he himself is an American, and he's saying, we're being so dumbed down because of Twitter and Facebook and Honesty Box and you name it, that we are becoming dumb. And that's what he's saying, because nobody's reading any longer. So what they found is that acts of perceived violence in media directly related to prejudice increase against the target group. That's a scientific finding. So acts of perceived violence in the media directly related to the prejudice increase against the target group. So as soon as they show you, you will do it. Secondly, you have news. So in the news, it's constantly going 24 hours, news hour. You have these talking heads with Muslim names sometimes. They're always there. You always notice that a man is being represented, meaning a man is representing a whole community, but the whole community does not take him as their representation, but he's always there, because this is what the news media does. And this is even our CBC here, they do that. They bring people who with Muslim names who have nothing to do with the Muslim community as a whole, but because his name is a Muslim name, or therefore, oh look, we're going to give it credence. So they do that. That's what they do in news. Or they have paid pundits. And these are not analysts. They don't bring Robert Pape. They don't bring people who have done real study and who are real scholars in their field. They bring pundits. They're paid off.
Okay. Of course, I think you're bad-mouthing Islam more than I am, but is
I'm not
he accurate?
Islam.
Brian, this has got nothing to do with
Islam. People stop me on the streets and tell me that I shouldn't have you on because you're a bad Muslim that only says bad things about Islam.
No, that is because they have no clue about Islam.
This is the paid pundits or slanted, in-depth analysis by some guy who's looking slick. And the music and the video and all of those things. So that changes perception again. So when the Muslims get spat at outside, or when they get told off, or when they make policies and laws against, this is the reason why, because it's continuously in your face. Or you have the specious TV shows, concocted themes, about, oh, we're catching the terrorists. But they show the Muslim woman there, oh, my son, and I've seen little clips of that. And it's really horrendous. I never in my life would have thought, or even have imagined in my worst nightmare that they would have TV shows depicting us as criminals, as terrorists. It just blows your mind. 1.8 billion people.
These individuals are living amongst us. War criminals, international terrorists. They could be our neighbors.
Let me get this straight. There's somebody living in our country who's been implicated in the death of over 47,000 people.
How could our government ever allow this to happen?
Mr. President, we're going to do something.
Our goal is to track them down.
This guy's a designated terrorist. We've confirmed where he lives, we know where he's at, and we can go get him anytime we want. I have eyes on from the back. Let's go.
He knows that we are on to him.
500 meters.
This is Hilo 1, suspect car is crossing the bridge.
All right, got him right up ahead. Copy that.
They might kill him, and they might kill us in the process. They're notorious for it. When they decide to clean a target, everybody goes.
Just blows your mind. Just imagine if we started doing the same thing in our countries, depicting every white American or every white European as a walking time bomb. Well, how do you think they would feel? And that would be an egregious violation of human rights. No doubt. So, but when it's done to us, there should be some kind of thing. There should be somebody saying something. We even on our local paper, we sent so many requests to be printed alongside of their gibberish news. Always denied, always. So because people want to sell paranoia, people want to sell bigotry, they want to sell xenophobia, because people are paranoid for these things, and therefore when somebody gets paranoid, it's easy to sell them. It's easy to agitate the herd so that they can be steered into a corner. So we have these newspapers that are they're unscrupulous. Because they don't use, but there are some local newspapers. There was actually a friend of mine, a Christian friend of mine, Robin, I'll just take his first name. He actually declined to write an article in our newspaper because they wanted more spice against the Muslims, and he refused to do it because he's an ethical person. Instead, he wrote it in his own paper. Amazing. I mean, there are credible people out there. There are good people out there. But because the dollar amounts, the pushing of this money, we have to take the brunt of that brutality. Or we have these disingenuous radio shows, talking heads, continued, everyone has an opinion. And even the cross-country radio show within Canada, we phoned, before we could get on, we had to tell them what we are going to say. I mean, what kind of a democratic radio show is this? Why don't you let somebody come on? We don't look by talking. I mean, if somebody's drunk or slurring in their speech or cursing, that's another thing. Any audience can realize that. But if they're not, why do you have to filter our responses? What kind of democracy are we living in? Or these noisome, unhealthy video games that corrupt the mind and the soul of from the youth all the way up to the grown-ups. And maybe, God willing, if there's a chance, we can even deal with them. How they denigrate women, how they actually show African Americans as bullies, as aggressors, as killers within that, or ripped muscles, and at the same time carrying guns. So keeping the stereotype going, and always the macho guy is the white male because he has he has his braggadocio with him. I mean, this is out there, and this is a fact. But you might call it alarmist. You know why? Because, this is alarming. This is not alarming. Why I tell you this is not alarming? Because it's like a heart surgeon telling you, listen, don't eat Wendy's French fries and burgers or Burger King or any of these fast food joints, because they're not good for your heart if you don't exercise. And if you eat that all day, sugar, salt, oil, continuously processed food, you will get sick, you will have heart problems, you will have diabetes and all of those things. That doesn't mean that if I walk into Wendy's now and eat a fry, oh, tastes nice, I don't die of a heart attack at that time. So you don't call these doctors alarmists. But just like you shouldn't call us alarmists by saying, listen, these things have a trickle-down effect. It affects people. So all of these things affect people. They affect politicians. They affect laws. They affect policies. That's why even now they just passed a law by saying that a lady who's wearing a niqab cannot actually take her citizenship oath. This is the new right-wing government is actually putting that out on. I mean, what right has politics? Democracy is that the government should be least, meaning to say that it's by the people, for the people. What does the government have to do with women's clothing? If I don't agree with the niqab, I have no right to tell her to take it off. If I don't agree with the bikini, I don't have a right to tell her to cover herself. So in a secular society, at least be a bit even-handed. So this is what's happening. So racism, how do you think it happens? Because it's affecting everyone. So if you keep showing these ads, when people say, oh, come on, it doesn't happen. Because if it doesn't happen to you, you don't think it's okay. That's why our border guards, whenever the Muslims come in, they harass them because, oh, all of a sudden now they're looking for Osama bin Laden. Even when he's gone, they're still looking for him. Because, oh my goodness, oh, how come you traveled? You came back? Oh my. So all of these things, the border guards are affected, politicians are affected because they're spewing the same garbage at them that they're spewing to everyone else. So the environment of hate is actually ripe at this point against the Muslims, and they're repeating the same history over and over again. And you know, people usually espouse, assimilate them, assimilate them. Assimilation is not part of democracy. If you integrate, integration means you work with people, you cooperate with them. Corporate, I was thinking corporate because these are the ones who want to assimilate us. Assimilation, we're not cyborgs, we're not, we have individuality. Democracy flourishes when you let people express their opinion. Not everyone wants to have a chicken sandwich, right? So it is not about assimilation, it's about integration. Integration with respect to rights for others. I don't make a Hindu go and come and pray at the mosque and say, oh, if you don't do that, you're not as good. I don't do that. So also give the respect to the Muslims also. Karen Dill, she said, and she was quoting this study. She said, and Schulzer and Anderson so skillfully showed us that we don't differentiate well at all between the myths that we have, meaning we hold in our mind's eye, and what we take to be real view. So what's in our mind's eye, what's a real view, we can't differentiate between those two, and that's a fact. And she's a A1 psychologist. That's a fact. What's in your mind's view and what's real view? You don't go and say, well, let me differentiate between these. You don't. And she went on to say either through ignorance or through malicious intent, big media can sell an image of a people. Can sell an image of a people. So what is an image of a Muslim? He is, surreptitious, he is clandestine, he is violent, he is aggressive, he wants to take over. This is what they're trying to sell. That's why you have the Fear Incorporated report from a think tank in America where they're stating that these 5 talking heads were given over $43 million, and they traced all the monies back to go and talk things like, oh, they can't integrate here, Sharia is coming, Sharia is coming. What a nonsense. If you're talking from a Canadian perspective, how does that take over our laws and orders? It's impossible. How does it take over the Constitution of America? What a ridiculous thing to do.
What authoritative Islam calls Sharia, which is a pretty repressive, brutal program. It, by the way, is the justification for jihad, that you're supposed to, if you adhere to Sharia, if you subscribe to this program, you're supposed to engage in violent forms of jihad.
I mean, you go to a mosque to get married. If I go and pray, if I go and wash, that means I'm following Sharia, because Sharia tells you to wash before you pray. I mean, this is ridiculous. But you can't tell that on who's going to bring us, you see, on mainstream media to elucidate these facts and to edify them. They don't want that. They want selling points. It's about making money. Why not? You demonize the Muslims, you villainize them, you vilify them, you malign them. To do what? To sell your program, to sell the wars, to sell the armaments, to sell the contracts. It's all about big bucks, and the truth is out there. Michael Kodosky, he actually said, if the Buddhists had resources, we would demonize them. If the Buddhists had resources, we would demonize them. This is a world thinking machine, Kodosky, and he's saying that it's not because we're demonizing Muslims because they're inherently bad. It's because the resources are underneath their feet. So we have to demonize them in order to invade their lands. So if it were Buddhists, we would demonize the Buddhist. You see, so media becomes part of the person. You see, my dear viewer, I'm trying to impart the fact, because I have to let it for posterity, that whoever watches, for them to know that media becomes part of the person, like food. You keep eating junk, it becomes a part of you. You keep imbibing in terms of intellectual junk, it becomes a part of you. That's why psychologically you fall back on something that you know. So you will always fall back into the stereotypes that you have grown up with. A few examples of how it becomes a part of you. That's why that taxi driver in New York City, neck was slashed after being asked, "Are you a Muslim?" He said, "Yes, I'm a Muslim." A 21-year-old, Michael Enright, actually he was wrong in doing so, but he actually slashed. The media made a little bit of a thing of it and covered. Although it was big, he was slashed and stabbed. A local example here, four weeks ago, a lady waiting at the bus stop in the cold, in dead of winter, was not allowed onto the bus. The other lady that was beside her, she walked on. The other lady, they closed the door, and the bus driver said, "Nope, you're not coming in here." She had to wait another 20 minutes for the other bus to come in. Happening, right? Trickle down effect. Yeah, that's right. Economically and spiritually and news-wise. Mosques have been vandalized all over Canada, all over America, and that's all out there. You can go to Islamophobia watch.org or .com, or there's a plethora of evidences out there that they have chronicled all of these happenings. But yet, who is there to read? Because we have to come sit down, have our food, and just lay back and hold our opinions. So it takes a mind, it takes a critical mind to say, no, world should not be like that. Muslim was attacked. A Muslim lady was attacked in Toronto. A lady came and started, ripping off her hijab or her niqab off of her. But what the Muslim lady did was took her to court and sued her. And not only that, she took, made sure that the police got after her. So at least she did the right thing. But can you just imagine being attacked in a mall? Especially in Toronto when so many, diverse, what made that person do so?
We begin tonight with a CBC Toronto exclusive. A Muslim woman attacked in a shopping mall, a veil ripped from her face.
Was this an act motivated by hate? The victim is speaking out for the first time. Muhammad Leela brings you the CBC News exclusive.
I screamed at that moment, but no one was in the mall.
This is the first time Inas Qadri is speaking out. She was shopping with her children last year in Mississauga when she was approached by two strangers. This security video at the top right shows both of them entering the store. Qadri says the older one quickly began swearing at her religion, and her veil.
Leave our country. We don't go back to your country. That's what she said.
What happens next takes only a split second. The woman gets in Qadri's face, grabs her veil, and pulls her off camera.
Being attacked for no reason. For no reason. That's something difficult.
The attacker walked away while Qadri quickly ran for help. Rubina Nahid was the first to respond.
The two kids were standing just right here, and they were crying and they were scared.
For Qadri, that was the worst part. Her 3-year-old son and 2-year-old daughter watching it all happen. In her living room, Qadri read us part of her victim impact statement.
My kids don't feel secure with me alone, and always prefer to have someone bigger in size than me to feel safe.
When the video was played in court, the accused, Rosemary Creswell, pleaded guilty. When we spoke with Creswell on the phone, she admitted to pulling off the veil, but insisted it was all just a misunderstanding. You removed this woman's veil, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and
but
why
I have to go.
Okay, and why did you do that, ma'am?
I have to go.
I just like to know, why would you... Then...
Well, you see that Berkovich, who now they say that he wasn't insane, because I was saying that a long time, because when he did that, when he did the killings, they said, oh, he's mentally deranged. I said, nobody writes a 1,500-page manifesto with coherence and you tell him he's mentally deranged. Now they're saying that he's not mentally deranged at all. You see? And he quoted all of these guys in the Fear Inc. report, including some Canadian authors who mouth all of these things. They're coming to call us and all of the... He's quoting all of the... So why isn't the long arm of the government taking them to jail for inciting hatred and violence towards innocent people? Why not? That's the question we want to ask. There were women spat at so many. There's so many instances that I even know of. There was a local family, a man and his wife and 5 kids had to move out because they wrote graffiti all over his house and told him that we were going to come and get you. He moved out of there and he didn't report anything because I just out of fright. Fright for his family, of course. Just trying to make a point that there's going to be that there is an environment of hate. Yes, there are good people out there, no doubt. I have colleagues, Christian colleagues, Jewish colleagues, Buddhist colleagues, Hindu from the Hindu background. So I have, and even atheist colleagues who are very good, very kind, very loving. And the phone has its media. So very loving, very kind. All of these things are actually taking place, but at the same time, I'm not talking about the general good of the people, the beneficence of the people, that they're not good benefactors to community. I'm talking about the media that usurps that right, that actually puts in poison. But my plea is that media is making an environment of hate. Because we bathe and we breathe the media. We bathe and we breathe it continuously. 2008 Potter's report, and that's not Harry Potter, by the way. In another marvelous book by Joel Bakan, Childhood Under Siege, he reported in there that the average American, and you can read 4 Arguments of the Elimination of Television by Jerry Mander and Plug-in Drug by Mary Wynn. There are many great authors out there that have talked about this. That the average American now, the average, that means people are above and people are below. The average American watch 4.5 hours of television per day and 2.5 hours of computer. Where's your time for doing any other thing other than that? So that's why I say we breathe and we bathe in media. And the college students, 3.5 hours of computer time and 7.5 hours of other media. Blows your mind. So what I'm saying here is that there is a concerted effort to demonize and to vilify the Muslims, especially law-abiding Muslims, putting them on watch lists, putting them on no-fly lists, putting them on some kind of, demonization of their characters.
Sometimes the numbers tell the story. Case in point, the world's Muslim population is growing by leaps and bounds. Right now on Connect the World, we want to examine, though, the impact of a growing Muslim presence across the globe. We'll start with Richard Green, who crunches the numbers and tells us why it's happening.
20 years ago, there were just over 1 billion Muslims in the world. 20 years from now, there will be just over 2 billion. That's what one Washington think tank projects after completing a massive study to figure out how many Muslims there will be in every country on Earth in 2030. People are going to have to get used to some changes, the study suggests.
So you feel frightened. What if my daughter goes out there? Will she be attacked? I mean, I never thought that I would be thinking like that. But sometime now it comes on and somebody's thinking that it's, at least if you're a bigot or if you're a racist, you would say, good, we got the point across. But that's not the way to live. Canada is great, and America at least was great by following the rule of law. So the rule of law is extremely important, that the rule of law should be enacted in order to make the country great. So what we have to do, you and I, that we have to take these media head on.
So what's causing this? Well, Muslims are living longer than they used to, and the global Muslim population is relatively young. That means there are lots of Muslims of childbearing age. Birth control is okay in Islam. For example, the Pew study found that in Iran, married women use birth control at exactly the same rate as married American women. About 3 out of 4 married women use it in each country. But even so, Muslim women around the world are simply having more children than non-Muslim women. And that's why the most popular name for baby boys born in England in 2009 was Mohammed. Richard Green, CNN, London.
We have to take them to court. And for the Muslims who are listening to this, that they have to get out of this backward, wayward mentality, the thinking that, okay, they're just going to build a mosque with a dome and a minaret. That's not going to cut it any longer. You have to actually deal with the media, because you can build as many domes as you like, but your persons will not be taken care of outside, meaning you will not be in safety. And all of the laws that are being enacted by even politicians, some draconian laws based on vacuous understanding, secrecy, everything is over there. So we have to now really take on the media and really take them to court. Yes, they can say freedom of speech, but freedom of speech should not infringe on my rights also. So I've made it a clear thing today that it is a violation of our rights, in an egregious violation, in a very surreptitious way. And surreptitious has an evil tinge to it, that they do it a bit stealth, and yet some are overtly racist and bigoted. We need to actually do that. As a Muslim community, you need to have your media watch. You need to be proactive. Anyone can have an opinion, that's not the problem. But if you are on a systematic basis making, and building an environment of hate within the newspapers, within the pictures, so we want to stop that landslide. It's almost at the 11th hour. I mean, it's how worse it's going to get by the things that you have seen within the clips that we have shown. This is there in media. Make the decision yourself. There is a better world. There are good people within law enforcement. There are good people within government. There are good people within public. But this media that's been controlled by a few families, this needs to be actually taken care of and tackled in a very sagacious manner, in a very intellectual manner, and also in a very litigious manner. So we have to actually litigate. We have to go to court. We have to go to law. Wake up, people. Time not to be doing the same thing over and over again. The worst thing in history to do is to repeat itself. And some of us, we haven't done our job to go out there even to shake a hand. We always, living in our cocoons, and it should not be any more like that. We are here, we have a right to practice religion, freedom of religion, and we are peace-loving, law-abiding. What is wrong with that? But we do have to keep saying that all the time. We are peace-loving, we are peace-loving, we are peace-loving. How many times do you want to break us into pieces? So we want to say, with understanding, we have love for society, we have love for country, but at the same time, we also want safety and rights, equal rights as everyone else. Court of law is there, rule of law is there. I leave you in goodness. Peace be unto you.